Hello friends, I'm going to be doing my book presentation for you for the picture book genre. And don't feel bad if you don't vote for me. I'm sure you guys want your bonus points. That's okay, but I'm very excited to show you some of my favorite picture books this whole week. But this was the example I wanted to give you on how you can do your book presentation. So the author of Where the Wild Things Are had a great quote that I loved. He said once, when he was describing children's book illustrations and he was talking to young artists, he said, "You must never illustrate exactly what is written. You must find a space in the text so that the pictures can do the work." So when you're talking about picture books, you really have to pay close attention to the illustrations and see what they're adding to the story, because there is usually a story within the story by looking at the pictures. I've chosen today a book that has no words. This is a wordless book titled Home by Jeannie Baker, published in 2006. And I'll go over the criteria at the end for wordless books. The reason I liked this book so much, it caught my eye because there's so much detail in the illustration, and I've spent countless hours looking at the tiny details of the text, and so have my children. I did stretch this photo out so hopefully you can see some of the details, but at the beginning of the book it shows a window in a house, and all along the edges of the window you can see the inside of the house. So there's a pencil, there's a notepad, and then by looking out the window, the reader is looking out and you can see the world through the window at that time. And at that moment there was a baby and a mom and a dad, a cat, no grass, and some stores around the back. So just looking at this one page could take a really long time to just absorb the world through that window. And I did not do every page of this book. I just flipped through a few pages and took another picture. So time has passed, and on the inside of this window are some school papers and a teddy bear, but on the outside you'll see there's grass. The world is changing about with the buildings outside. There's roads being built. There's different kinds of cars and transportation, and even some of the buildings are becoming worn. I flipped a few pages and took another picture, and now instead of the reader feeling like you are the person looking out, now we know there's a character here who has aged, and if just looking at the yard in the back, you can see some change over time, as well as those buildings, the cars, the restaurants. And now that I'm looking at that, I'm wondering I kind of want to look in these windows and see if things change over there, but I've never done that. I'm going to go back and reread this after this to see if some changes have happened within these windows over there. Interesting. So I flipped a few pages, took another picture, and now that girl has grown up, and there's trees growing, and there seems to be water now, and it's just really fun to look at all the details. I flipped again, and now it's a night picture. And if you look closely, a little bit of smoochy smoochy going on right there. And a wedding right outside on their block. I really like to see, you could take this book with children and analyze it a few ways. You could analyze the natural things happening in the nature behind, the nature within the city, or just her own backyard. Or you could compare the backyard with the world around them. There's just so much you could do with this. And the book continues. So if I was going to look at the criteria for evaluating a wordless book, you want to make sure that there's an organized plot so that the reader can follow the sequence of time or the sequence of the story. You want to have enough depth of detail that could be appropriate for the age level of the children. And these wordless books are usually for younger non-readers, but they're also really popular with older readers too. So at the end, at any of the age levels or grade levels at elementary, this would be popular, and even grown-ups. I love this book. Do the children have enough background knowledge to understand and interpret the illustrations? I would say yes. They definitely can see the details and they understand that someone's growing up. They know what it looks like to grow up. And is the size of the book appropriate? I would say yes. The actual book, if you buy it, it's a large book. It would be on my tall part of the bookshelf in my house. So there's enough space visually to see all the details that there are on each page. And would the subject appeal to children? And I think yes. So I think this is a great example of a wordless picture book. I just wanted to finish with this quote by Chris Van Allsburg. He said, "That to me is satisfying when a picture book actually ends up having greater meaning than simply illustrating what the text says. As you reread it, you look at it with a completely different eye." And while we didn't technically read this book with text, I definitely read this book through the illustrations, and even just now I noticed something with a different eye that I wanted to go back and reread. Just for your own information, Jeannie Baker has a few other books similar to this. This was actually published before the book Home, but Home was more popular. Window is another book by her, and this is her latest book, Mirror. Thanks a lot.